You first install the Xoro 8000, this is the video that you'll be faced with, okay? It comes up here, so the two things you'll notice is the language is set in French, and it's set for the country France, but this is a relatively minor problem for us. Now, the first thing we want to do is we're actually going to come along and set this to Germany here, Almania, right? And the reason that we do this, I'm just going to come along and hit the select button here now. We can leave it in the French language for now because it's a totally automatic step here now. And I'll just press select. Now if we had to come along there and select France, what would happen is it'd tune in the channels perfectly, but it'd put them up, we just discovered this by accident, around channel slot 800. But if you choose Germany and tune in on this particular channel, what happens is it'll run the channels from 1 to 7 and in the correct order for our viewing. You know, with RT at the top of the list and then the lesser known channels coming towards the end of the list. So from that perspective it works quite well. Now what you'll see is it started off here at the bottom of the VHF spectrum and then works right through up to the very top of the UHF spectrum. Now if it comes to a point where it's coming to a signal, it'll actually stall at that point and it'll say, is there a signal there? And if there is, can I tune the channels in, okay? So so it'll probably come to this point it all depends, we'll say. If you're in an isolated area where there's only one transmitter near you, you might only pick up from one particular transmitter. But if, we'll say, as is the case in most of the country, where there's a few transmitters that are a possibility for you, one thing to realise is that the digital terrestrial signal is extremely strong. So it wouldn't be unusual to have a potential signal for 3 or 4 different transmitters. And what this box does rather cleverly is it'll stop at each one, tune them in, and afterwards then it simply dumps the most powerful signal into the top position, and that's what's saved onto your box, okay? So we can see now, we'll say that we have all these channels here, and they're all actually radio stations that have been tuned in. And on the right hand side here we can see that this is what we can see on the screen is roughly a half of what's there. So up above, what we can't see here now is an extra 1 or 2 radio stations plus all the television channels, okay? So we're working from the 0% up to the 100%, and the top of the UHF band is 69. So this position here will be at 52. So normally we'll say when I've done this practice for this video here, it'll probably come along and it'll pick up one more transmitter, and then it'll just get to the end and we'll exit out, okay? So the time scale on doing this, some other boxes are slightly quicker than this. This probably takes it in the region of, I would say, 3 minutes or so from beginning to end of the scan. But as it's a once-off thing, it's not an overly painful process. So just work through. Okay. So, I mean, currently we'd say there's no subscription channels being broadcast here. Now, there had been plans originally when they were going to launch Xero that it would include some subscription channels, and people might remember that people like Boxer and that had been looking at rolling out the system, but it just the rollout of the system just culminated with the economic downturn. So as it stands now, there's only free channels being broadcast there, and possibly, we'll say at a later date, they will come back and revisit the idea of subscription channels. The problem we face in Ireland in this is that any system that's rolled out will be specifically for Ireland. So a mixture of their low spending power and a relatively small population means that it's quite expensive for people to do it. So we can see here now, we've gone and we've tuned in the thing, and these channels have been tuned in, okay? So if I just hit the OK button here now, we'll see this has worked out quite beautifully. With RT1, 2, TV3, TG Car, the RT News channel, 3E, RT Junior, and RT1+1, which normally starts broadcasting at 9 PM at night, okay? And they're all available on it, and that's the 8 channels, but as time goes on, more channels will be added. So you can see anyway, the automatic tune here, relatively straightforward process, and obviously great picture results at the end of it. Okay, that's the end of this video.